meeting your family, and congratulations on your nomination. And I really appreciate the conversation we had, I think it was about a month ago, about the importance of leveraging existing Army assets to strengthen our electronic warfare capabilities, and hearing your perspective on how critical our Army's training ranges are to that work and that effort. The Fort Huachuca Electronic Proving Ground offers great potential for electronic warfare testing, experimentation, and training. And Fort Huachuca, as we discussed, has a truly unique geography that allows us to safely employ electronic warfare effects and to train very realistically. And a DoD team recently came out to the fort and assessed their capability and found that it does have the capacity and the expertise and the will also to do more. And in my view, we need to seize this opportunity. That's why I led a provision in this year's defense bill requiring that the Secretary of Defense carry out a demonstration of a new Western Range complex. This will eventually serve as a joint, multi-domain, non-kinetic testing and training environment across military departments. And the Western Range complex would connect multiple non-kinetic ranges and training sites to better replicate some real-world threat conditions. And I also worked on provisions to require assessments on where we may need to invest to ensure that we keep pace with changing technology and threats. So, General George, if confirmed, you would oversee the execution of Army policies and programs on electronic warfare. So could you explain a little bit why this capability is so important as we accelerate modernization to meet threats posed by countries like Russia and China?
Yes, Senator. This kind of gets to some of the earlier questions. We were talking about what have we learned, and a lot in electronic warfare and also in signals intelligence. That's a big part of what we can do out in Huachuca. There's very few locations like what we have, the capability that we have out at Huachuca, which is also the Army's Intel Center. And we have to immediately adapt the kind of lessons that we're learning, and we need places where we can do that. And we're looking at places just like you're talking about doing that at Huachuca. Also have to integrate that into our combat training centers. So I think it's absolutely, if we're going to evolve, we're going to have to learn how to adapt to those environments.
And one of the things that makes Fort Huachuca unique is the geography. And when you put an emitter out on the Barry Goldwater Range on the ground to emulate some Chinese threat, compared to what you can do in Fort Huachuca, you're talking about upwards of 10 times the power. And what that enables is, say it's a surface-to-air missile threat, a fighter to be able to identify that threat from a much greater distance. So could you talk a little bit about the context of what this means for a future conflict in the Pacific if we were to get into one?
Well, I think that it's what you're talking about being able to do is realistic training that we have to be able to do. Those are the kind of threats that we're going to face, and you have to train. You have to train for that. We're doing the same thing and trying to incorporate that as where we can with our exercises. Some of our exercises have actually linked back to capabilities that we've had at the electronic proving ground. So I think we have to, obviously the Pacific is the expanse, and doing geography and linking all of these capabilities to include command and control is something that we'll continue to do. But it's obviously critically important to the Army and I think the Joint Force.
Well, thank you, General. In my remaining time here, I just want to talk about a visit I had at the Army Futures Command, and I was briefed on their efforts to ensure that the U.S. Army remains at the forefront of technological innovation and warfighting capability. And they had some concerns that they didn't have a lot of nimble funding tools and sources, and they were often at risk of missing some opportunities to leverage innovation from industry because they didn't have the funding tools available to get resources to companies without it taking, in some cases, a couple years. So I know I'm running out of time here, but General, I'm interested in getting some help and a commitment to facilitate some collaboration between the Army Futures Command and the Office of Strategic Capital, and to see if you'd be willing to work with me on these efforts to bridge what we often refer to as the valley of death in government contracting.
Absolutely, Senator. Whatever we can do to, I think, do things evolve quickly, we're absolutely interested in that, and I'm happy to come see you and talk to you about that more.
Thank you, General.
Thank you, Senator Kelly. Senator Butt, please.